Welcome to the Brainiate Show, where we talk about all things Salesforce, sharing the coolest features, solutions, and best practices to turn you into a Salesforce rock star. Here's your host, former attorney turned Salesforce consultant and trainer, David Giller.
Hello and happy Tuesday to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well. I am really excited to be here. I know that last week in the Salesforce community, last week was a little bit hectic. There were, I know for myself, 3 in-person events that I myself wanted to attend in person, and in the end, I attended none of them in person. Trailhead DX, Northeast Dreamin', as well as Texas Dreamin'. If I could only clone myself to go to all 3 places while at the same time not skipping a beat as it relates to just the regular day-to-day work responsibilities, I would have been at all 3. But unfortunately, I was not at any of them last week. But you know what? I think if anything the pandemic has taught us is that's okay. There will be other events, there will be other opportunities to do networking, and to the extent that any content is available online, we can always leverage that. But it's fine. We just move forward and continue to learn and participate with in those events that we are able to. So without further delay, I want to really cover the topic that's at hand for this week. For those of you who are brand new to Brainiate Show Live, I want to welcome all of you. For those who are not able to attend the live stream, and I completely understand why, and you're watching the replay, we missed you. Maybe you can attend live at some other live stream in the future. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to unpack some helpful, meaningful, hopefully impactful learning experiences for you, the Salesforce professional. And today we're going to be talking and focusing specifically about how to automate your documents with the integration between DocuSign and Salesforce. So I'll be talking a little bit about conceptually the things to know about, things to consider, things that you should just the fundamentals that you should have in place. And we're going to actually be spending a bulk of the time in a screen share, excuse me, where I'm actually going to be showing you live how to build from scratch. So first I'm going to show you exactly how everything works, both as a typical Salesforce user, as well as the admin setting things up, as well as the external customer, the external person who is receiving a document to be signed, show you how all of that works from that perspective, and then giving you the glimpse of how to configure things, how to set up a document from scratch. So as you can imagine, there's a lot to cover there in the screen share piece of it, which is why we're going to be spending a bulk of the time there. So without further delay, let's jump in and talk about some of the conceptual topics that we really need to cover about automating your documents with DocuSign. So the first thing that we really need to understand is, what does DocuSign provide? And also, why are we talking about DocuSign and not some of the other options that are available? So to me, that really requires asking some follow-up clarifying questions, which is, what are the goals? What are the needs? What are the business requirements of the business? DocuSign, within the space of document generation and document digital signatures, there has been a lot of movement within the last couple of years in particular. Different companies have bought each other, and different companies introduce new features, and new things are just coming on the horizon. So it's a little bit of a moving target. The core, the flagship product, as I understand it at least, the flagship product of DocuSign is digital signatures. So that is really their biggest strength, digital signatures. So if you have a contract, a form, something that actually needs to get signed, and by the way, not only signed, but signed from a legal perspective, like admissible in court, recognized in case there are any issues of someone saying, oh, I didn't really sign that. Someone else logged in as me. Someone else hacked my email and signed it. So to try to counter any arguments like that, DocuSign, from a brand perspective, DocuSign is quite solid out there. Most attorneys or anyone in the government or legal sector is quite familiar with DocuSign. So to say that a document was signed by DocuSign versus any other tool, nobody's going to really question the credibility of DocuSign as a platform for digital signatures. I'm not at all saying that the others should not even be considered. I'm not saying that DocuSign is even necessarily better than any of the, I think it's incredibly cool. It is a very powerful tool. So I'm not at all trying to knock DocuSign, but I'm just saying as it relates to digital signatures, e-signatures, DocuSign, they know what they're doing. They have their act together, and the brand is quite solid and strong within the world at large in terms of accepting a digital signature through the DocuSign platform as being like accepted and admissible in court without a whole lot of other questions associated with it. So that's where the strength is. Now, at the same time, DocuSign as a company, they actually have a couple of products. E-signature is the one that I was talking about up until now. There are additional products that DocuSign has that, by the way, I know very little about. One, for example, is called document generation. And this is exactly where I want to go to explain to you some of the differences of what you should be aware of. So what is document? So we talked as a concept about digital signatures. I think that's pretty simple and straightforward for everyone to understand. It's simply the signing of a document. DocuSign also has capability, as many companies need, to sort of like fill in the blank of, for example, what is the company name of the company that's actually completing the document, the company that's receiving the document. And if we happen to have some of that information in Salesforce, DocuSign actually gives us the capability, the e-signature tool gives us the capability to merge in values that are residing in Salesforce into the document. Which brings me now to talking about document creation, the document generation. We could have many scenarios, and I'm sure you can imagine many scenarios in any organization where the requirements might be, well, yeah, this is our standard contract, and we can just fill in the blanks, sort of like Mad Lib style, for those of you who are old enough to remember what Mad Lib, I don't think they're around anymore, it's just fill in the blank type style. But alternatively, we might have situations where if it's an S corporation that we're sending it to, or if they're incorporated in the following states, or if they have over 500 employees, then the following 3 or 4 clauses, paragraphs, need to be inserted into the document. So that's dramatically different than just taking the values that we have in Salesforce and pushing it into the document, the fill in the blank style. So now we're talking about, if the following things are true in Salesforce, then we want a different version of the document, or to dynamically create the document. And the resulting document should not be sort of like a locked, the equivalent of a PDF that you simply sign, but it's an actual document that maybe the user in the end can make additional modifications to, and then lock it up for digital signatures. Now, so that's document generation, document creation. And as I'm saying that, many of you might be thinking of other tools like, for example, Conga Composer. And that's something that Conga Composer does. Some of you might be thinking of other tools that can do similar things, like, let's say, PandaDoc. So document generation is about creating a document that goes above and beyond the fill-in-the-blank style, where you need to have different clauses either included in the document or removed from the document based on specific criteria. Then, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, many organizations also have another need for the contract management and contract negotiation. So for example, if I am the company that's generating the document and sending it out to a prospect or a customer, and the customer has particular issues with certain wording in there, they want to redline, so sort of like cross out or highlight specific lines, specific clauses, specific words, and maybe their lawyers are giving feedback of, well, we're okay with it, but we would like the following changes. And for many organizations, that's all being done in Microsoft Word with just redlining going back and forth, and then comparing different versions of the document, and then accepting which changes that the other party requested, which changes we've actually approved of, which ones we rejected. So now we're talking about contract negotiation, contract creation and contract negotiation. That is not what I'm covering during this videos, but during this live stream. But I wanted to highlight the different, I'll call them tiers, the different tiers of functionality that are very closely related. And as a Salesforce professional, when someone is asking you, a business person is asking you to help with creation of documents or signing of documents, you need to ask a lot of probing questions so that you have a much better understanding of what exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about that it's a resulting document, all we really need is the digital signatures? Or are we also talking about crafting of the document itself, where particular clauses will come in or be excluded based on certain criteria? Or maybe we also want to track the entire back and forth negotiation process about the contract. So for today's video, I am focusing exclusively on the DocuSign e-signature capability, which is really just the digital signatures plus the fill-in-the-blank functionality. And even if that might seem really small, maybe even minuscule compared to everything else that I talked about, this is incredibly powerful stuff. And I can think of a lot of use cases in any type of organization where the powerful functionality that I'm about to show you can be utilized in a lot of different ways. Now, I'll also call out for myself that that personally, I think you have to be living in a cave to not know, or totally off the grid, to not know what DocuSign is about, just even as a user, even as the recipient of a contract that needs to get signed. All of us as consumers have received in some context, I would think, most of us at least, have received in some context a DocuSign document that we need to fill out. Maybe it's an application for something, or maybe it's even signing up for cable services, or you're getting a new service with your cell phone provider, and in the end they're actually giving you a DocuSign document to fill out. So I too have been very familiar as an end user, as a consumer, what DocuSign is all about. I've even had over the years many different clients who are using DocuSign, and anytime I asked about whether or not they've been integrating DocuSign with Salesforce, I've been actually pretty consistently surprised that the answer is no, they haven't, and no, they were not even interested in it. So it was only recently, because I happened to be working on one particular project that has a heavy utilization of DocuSign. So this was, over the last few weeks, has been really the first opportunity that I've had in my professional career to actually go under the hood and build out, really from scratch, a DocuSign document to be filled out, and to also build out the Salesforce integration with DocuSign. And I was just mind blown. And by the way, through my own learning experience, I've also uncovered, and hopefully someone from DocuSign is actually watching this video, either on the live stream or the recording. I'm sorry, but the DocuSign resources available for Salesforce professionals is lacking, to say the least. So I pulled my hair out quite a bit. I had a lot of frustrating experiences navigating through the DocuSign help resources, training materials, because the training materials either focus exclusively on DocuSign as a standalone tool, in other words, having nothing to do with Salesforce, or they talk at super high level, sort of totally candy coating it, of here's how the integration works with a high level summary video, and very little content that really teaches Salesforce professionals on how to get the most out of the integration between Salesforce and DocuSign. So by saying all of that, I'm also trying to be very transparent, where I do not consider myself to be a DocuSign expert. However, I do consider myself to be an adequate Salesforce admin as it relates to using DocuSign and knowing what I know and what I've done over the last couple of weeks. I know a whole lot more than many other Salesforce professionals. So what I'm trying to do by creating this video is essentially paying it forward and creating, through the recording of this live stream, creating a resource for other Salesforce professionals who either might be exploring what are the capabilities between Salesforce and DocuSign, or they are actually tasked with a project. The project lands on their lap where they are expected to go ahead and integrate DocuSign with Salesforce, so that this way you can learn exactly how to do it and what you can do. And I think, like I said before, I think you're going to be pretty amazed by some of the capabilities that the tool has. So without further delay, let's jump in, and I'm going to share my screen and show you exactly what we can do. So here we are in a developer org. This is a new developer org that I created. And in this developer, there's very little going on in this developer org, but in this developer org, I already went ahead and I installed the DocuSign app. Now, I will also say just that by itself, you would think is very simplistic and very straightforward. It's not. I've been pulling my hair out quite a bit as it relates to not only installing the app, but also even after following all of the instructions that I found online in terms of giving permissions to a specific user to utilize the app. I got all kinds of crazy errors that made absolutely no sense. And Googling those errors just brought me to all kinds of discussion boards that really did not help me a whole lot. So it was quite a feat just to get the DocuSign app properly installed and configured just for my user in a brand new developer org. So I'm being transparent, where it's not an easy cakewalk just to even get here. So what am I talking about now that I've installed the app? So I can see over here where I've got this app called DocuSign Apps Launcher. And when I navigate over to it, by the way, I am the only user in this developer org because I just created it. I think it was last week I created it. And when I go into here, you'll see for the tab of DocuSign Setup, you're going to see some of the other DocuSign tools. We're not talking about DocuSign Gen. We're not talking about DocuSign Negotiate. All we're focusing on right now is e-signature. So what I'm going to show you, I'm going to sort of like back it up now and show you as an end user how it works to send out. I'm going to simulate with a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. So I'm going to go back in here to the sales app, and I'm going to simulate sending out an NDA and walking you through the entire experience, both as the end user who's using Salesforce, as well as the external recipient of the document that needs to get signed. So I'm going to go over here under accounts, and I will choose this account of, it doesn't really matter which account, I'm going to choose this account of pyramid construction. And you will see there are some minor configuration changes that I made here in Salesforce for this particular use case. So the changes that I'm about to share with you are not required for DocuSign. I made them to simulate a use case that is more than just send out a document and hope for the best. So basically what I did over here on the account object, I created a lookup field for primary contact. And there are many other ways I could have done this. And I did not build any automation. In theory, I could have built automation where on the contacts, if someone, or on related contacts, if someone is flagged as primary, then automatically populate this lookup. I didn't do any of that. So this is manually populated, a lookup on the account for the primary contact. You're going to see why soon, why I did this. And it's not necessary. It just makes life a little bit easier for anyone who is sending out these documents. Next, what I did was over here on the account, I created this section on the page layout and I added two other fields. One is called NDA status and the other one is NDA permitted purpose. So for a non-disclosure agreement, you might have some specific purpose of like why, under what conditions they are allowed, like why we have the NDA, under what conditions they are allowed to share anything that was, any information that was provided to the other party. And I'm just going to go in here in edit mode and I'm simply going to show you we have very simple, very straightforward. The NDA status I made pending, that's the default, and then we have sent and then we have executed. So I'm going to leave it as pending because no NDA was sent for this particular document, for this particular account. And then we have over here NDA permitted purpose. So you know what, I'll change this up. You may use the information shared. You're going to see why I'm doing this in a moment. For educational and training purposes only. And I'm going to hit save. Okay. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and simulate sending out. So I'm going to simulate that I want to send out an NDA to this guy over here, or woman, truthfully. Pat can be used for men or for women. So I want to send the NDA to this person that happens to have the same email address as myself, and because I want to show you what it looks like when you're receiving it. So I'm going to go over here on the top and I'm going to click where it says NDA. I'm going to click on this button. Now, before I click on this button, I also want to describe to you something that I did not set up in this org, but I actually did set up for my client, where let's say you have, so if the purpose of this button is for sending out the NDA, then this button is no longer needed if the NDA is fully executed. So I created a dynamic action where this button will only appear if the NDA status is not executed. For the client that I'm talking about, we actually were not working on NDAs whatsoever, and it wasn't even on the account object, but I'm trying to relate it to the configuration and the use case that I have here. So that's something that you can think about, which really has nothing to do with DocuSign, but to clean up the page layouts a little, make the page layouts a little bit more simplistic, a little bit more intuitive. If the NDA was already a done deal and we have the NDA, there's no need for this button to take up space on the page layout. But let's not have that hold us back. I'm going to go ahead and click on this NDA button, and this is where you're going to see, and I'm purposely showing this to you live and not showing screenshots. You see how we got the spinning wheel? This is one of my frustrations with DocuSign, where pretty much every iteration of going to the next screen with DocuSign takes a little bit of time. So again, if folks from DocuSign are watching, please take into account and maybe do something about the feedback that I'm sharing. So over here we can see, because I selected a button that already has a template associated with it, I've got the document right over here. So the end user, I am, let's say, the sales rep, the business development person that's about to send it out. I don't really need to do anything. However, if I do have a use case where there's another file that I want to send and that file is sitting in Salesforce, I can go here and click Add from Salesforce. Or if perhaps I have another document that's sitting on my desktop, I can click here, Upload, and it'll just allow me to navigate through. Come on, button, you can do it. It'll help me navigate through to find whatever other documents I might have on my desktop or on my downloads folder, desktop, whatever, in order to upload it to make it part of this packet that I'm going to send to the external party. But in this use case, because the button correlates to a very specific template document, I really don't need to do anything at all. All of the work is done. But I still want to show you what these features are about over here, because you might have a use case where you might need to leverage some of these options. So right now I'm just going to go here and I'm going to hit next. And the reason why you will now see, the reason why I created that primary contact lookup on the account is because I want to show you over here, this DocuSign automatically pulled in that person based on that lookup. And we can see the person still has my email address, but that's why this person was brought in. Now, in this use case that I'm simulating here, the way I set it up, first it goes to this individual, the person with the don't get confused with the terminology, the role, it's not the Salesforce role, it's the DocuSign document role, the role of primary contact. For naming purposes, I just named it the exact same thing as the field that I have in Salesforce. And this is the rep. So the company that I'm working in, the simulated company, is Simulated Mapping Company. So this is Simulated Mapping Company rep, the internal user who also needs to sign this. Now, DocuSign automatically populated these things based on the way that I set up the DocuSign envelope, and I'm going to show you what that means soon. If I need to make any change, I can certainly go right over here and I can hit edit, and I can, by the way, search for any user or contact that I have in Salesforce. So if, let's say, I want to look for someone by the name of Lauren Boyle, I can simply search for Lauren Boyle. Like maybe in the general use case, we want to send it to that person listed in the primary contact. But in this use case, I was on the phone with that person. That person said, don't send it to me, send it to my colleague, Lauren Boyle. So I can simply choose Lauren right over here. But let's go back and let's put Pat over here. And we can see the action over here. Now, by the way, there are additional options for actions. I'm not going to dive deep into these. I just want to show you that they exist. And alternatively, I can choose someone who is not necessarily in Salesforce, either as a user or as a contact, but maybe someone entirely different who maybe for whatever reason I don't need to create a contact record for that person in Salesforce. I could just go here and put any name, any email address, and give them that role of primary contact as it relates to the document, not to the Salesforce account record, as well as giving them whatever action is necessary. For now, I'm just going to hit cancel. I just want to show you what that's all about. So the sequence is, first it's going to go to this person to fill out. After this person fills it out, then it will go to this person. And if we see down here, DocuSign automatically populated based on a template that I designed, and I'm going to show you how to do that, what should be in the subject line of the email, as well as what should be in the body of the email when it goes out to these individuals. Additionally, I have over here, and I did not create any default settings for this, so it just took the system default. If I want to have any reminders, maybe I want to send reminders every 2 days, every 4 days, every 7 days, etc., I can go ahead and select that. For now, I'm just going to leave it blank, as well as when the envelope expires. In other words, after a certain time of sending it out, they are no longer able to click on a link to actually sign the document. And there are many use cases where this is totally needed, where we can set that up as well. But for now, I'm just leaving the defaults. I just want to show you this is how it works. Now I'm going to go over here on the upper right hand side and hit next. And now that I hit next, we're going to see, again, wait, go get a coffee, go for a walk, come back. Thank you, DocuSign. Maybe do some yoga, deep breathing. So now what it's going to do is it's going to show me a like sort of behind the scenes in case I need to make any changes to the document itself. So this is like really the working space, the DocuSign working space, where you are configuring the document. And in this scenario, basically the reason why you see these boxes here within the document is because these were already configured. I already configured these things. But if for whatever reason, before sending it out, the individual who is getting ready to send it out wants or needs to make any changes, they can go ahead and not only review the existing configuration, but they can also make any changes that are necessary. So this is where I'm going to give you an understanding of what is going on this screen. So I'm going to start all the way over here on the upper left-hand side. We see a drop-down, and it shows Pat's name. Pat is the external person who is receiving it. And next to Pat, we can see we have this yellow icon, and all of the fields over here are shown in yellow, and also on the document itself, we see a lot of things that are in yellow. Everything in yellow is what Pat is going to be able to see, and depending on the configuration of that particular field, it may or may not be read-only or may not be required, but this is what's going to be corresponding to that individual. Alternatively, if I want to see what is the second individual going to be able to see or do, when I click on that person, so now I can see additional fields for that person are over here. And within the body of the document, if I scroll down all the way to the signature area, you can see this is where this person is going to be signing versus the yellow section is where Pat is going to be signing. Now, if I want to bring in any additional fields, I can certainly do that. So if let's say I want that, you know what, let's go in here and let's sort of make believe that in this section, I want that this person should be able to add additional text over here. All I have to do is drag it over and do the layout however I want. And over here on the right-hand side, I can choose what font it should be, what font size it should be, whether or not it's required. I can do all of that configuration right here. I'm just going to undo that because I'm not doing it right now. One of the things that you're also going to see over here in the section for merge fields, here's where you can see, and I only set up 2 merge fields that go to populate this document based on Salesforce. So over here, you can see I have the account name and that field that I showed you of NDA permitted purpose. The account name is what you see right over here. Now, by the way, I also set it up with write back functionality, where if the person receiving it says, dude, you made a typo, you spelled this wrong, I want to give them permission not only to edit the pre-populated value that we have from Salesforce, but when they hit submit or sign or finished, whatever that button is, within DocuSign to indicate that they are done, DocuSign will automatically update the corresponding field with whatever information they put in here. So I set that up within this document. I'm going to show you where that is soon. And here you can see the permitted purpose, and that's for this field right over here. And that's where you can see it's actually pre-populating it here. So I can also click preview to get a more realistic preview of what each individual will see. So now it's going to generate the preview. So over here, I'm looking at it now as David Giller with the blue icon, and I can see that the only things that this person can populate, we can see the name is automatically appearing over here, and we can see that the only things that this person is able to populate is all the way on the bottom right over here with the signature. That's it. Their name is automatically there. And by the way, this is simply showing, if I want to get a preview, desktop versus tablet versus mobile phone. But now if I want to simulate for this individual, the external person, I can see over here, they are not able to edit anything over here. There's nothing that they can do, but they can go ahead and edit this. And it's also required, the name of the company, for example. And over here, we can see that this is also populated. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, this individual cannot do anything on the right-hand side. They can only sign on the left-hand side. So now that I see that this is good to go, I'm going to go here and I'm just going to hit send. So I sent the document out. Now it might take a moment to appear. I'm just going into my inbox over here and hitting refresh. I'm going to pull it up because I don't think you guys necessarily need to see my full inbox. But once it comes in, come on, DocuSign, you can do it. Once it comes in, you know what? I'll show you a different one where it's going to look something like this. And I've got the email where I just click. So the subject line is populated. The body of the email over here is populated. I'm still waiting for it to come in my inbox. Hang on, let's open another browser window for my inbox. And then by clicking on the document, this is for a different one, not for the one that I just sent out. Here we go. So, come on. This is the one that I just received. So if I go here to review document, I'll open it up. So now I'm simulating. I am the external party, the non-Salesforce user who is receiving this document. Let's go ahead and do that. And let's go here and hit continue. And now we can see that it allows me to modify the name of the company, and it's required. So let's go ahead and make a change over here. And let's say that instead of saying that the company name is Pyramid Construction Inc., I'm going to call it Pyramid let's do awesome. It would be nice if I could type. Awesome Pyramid Construction of USA. And let's go down all the way to the bottom over here, and we can see it has my name, and it has the job title, and it has the name of the company that I modified up above in the document. And now I could just go ahead and sign it and hit finish. And now the second person, which happens to be David Giller, is also going to get an email notification to go ahead and sign it. But before I go in as that person to sign it, actually, I should have, watch this. I should have showed you this even before I opened that email. So here I am back in Salesforce. Let me refresh the Salesforce record. And what you're going to see over here, the name of the account will not yet change, because that will not change until the entire document is signed. But what we can see over here, you see this NDA status is now sent. A few minutes ago, it was pending. I'm going to show you soon how I created that behind the scenes integration where once that document is sent out, it should, even if the person did not yet look at the email, even if the person did not yet sign the document, it should still update the NDA status to sent. So now that that happened, let me go into my inbox one more time. Let me close these browser windows. And now I'm going to go ahead as myself to sign the document, that second person who needs to sign the document. And I've got it right here. So let me open it in this window. And now I'm going to click on it and I'm going to sign the document as the second party. So continue, and you see over here, I can't edit any of this stuff up here. Let me go back into, you see I click start and it brings me all the way to the bottom. I'm only able to sign this section. I can see that this person already signed it. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to sign it as myself. Hit finish, wonderful. Now, when we go back into Salesforce, it takes a minute or two for this to happen, by the way. But when I go ahead and I refresh the record, what's going to happen is a couple of things. First of all, the updated name is going to appear over here. Then, as soon as the API call actually happens, the NDA status over here is going to get moved from sent to, what was the value? I think executed. And the file, the signed file is oh, look at that. That was actually funny. In the preview, it shows 0, but when I hover over it, it's actually there. And it happened just now. So let me refresh the browser window itself. And I'm guessing that we're going to see the other changes happen immediately. Here we go. So now the name of the account itself is updated. We can see the NDA status is updated. We can see over here under files, this is the completed file as a PDF. I'm not going to open it up. You guys get that. But I can also see, by the way, if I click on this tab for DocuSign. Now, I created the tab, but DocuSign gives us the Lightning components to place on the page layout. I just think it makes more sense to put it in its own dedicated tab in case anyone wants to see it. I can go here and I can open it up and I can see some of the history of when did these people actually do the things that they needed to do as it relates to this particular document. So I can see all of that right here. Now I'm going to show you. So now that I've walked you through the experience as an end user of sending out the document, as the external party who receives the document and signs it, and then what happens back in Salesforce, now let's go ahead and I'm going to show you from square one of building it out in the first place. So now I'm going to switch gears and go as playing the role of the admin. And I have, let's say, a new NDA. And by the way, this is where I'm starting off with this document. I'm going to totally do it from scratch, a different document. And I'm going to set it up. So over here in setup, if you basically, the terminology that we need to apply here for DocuSign is a DocuSign envelope template. So what we're creating is an envelope template. This is the template that I created previously, actually earlier today, about 2 hours ago, for the NDA that I showed you just now. I'm going to create a brand new one based on this document. So I'm starting off all the way from the beginning, and we have either a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document or a PDF. It doesn't really matter. Now, some of the things that you might want to think about, sharing with you some best practices so you can learn from some of the pain that I've had over the last couple of weeks. One of the things that's pretty quirky in DocuSign is when you place certain fields on the page, on the document itself, even though it looks perfectly aligned, like with a fill-in-the-blank line, it's not always looking as elegant as it seems until you hit preview or until you actually receive it yourself. So one of my recommendations is you get rid of the actual fill in the blanks and leave it with a blank space. So to do something like this, wherever it is that you want these fill in the blanks to happen, either someone's name or the account name or the date, where do something like this so it's a little bit more forgiving. So the document is a little bit more forgiving for you, and it doesn't look like a toddler went ahead into DocuSign and just threw a bunch of fields on the screen. So I'm creating some of these fill in the blanks. Now I'm going to basically do the same thing over here, and I trimmed this down. This is just a 2-page document. So over here, you don't really need the sections with this formality necessarily. What I would do is you could either just leave it blank, or you can say your signature, something like this. It would be nice if I could type signature, and you could do our signature. So you can do it like this, one above each other, or alternatively, you could just take this and just move a couple of different tabs and do that. And in DocuSign, we can go ahead and place the appropriate fields where the information is going to come in. So right now I can go here. Now, by the way, DocuSign allows you to upload. It could be a PDF or a Microsoft Word document. It doesn't necessarily matter. So over here, because I'm in Google Doc versus Microsoft Word, I'm going to take the liberty of showing it to you as a PDF. So I'm going to download this template as a PDF. So now when I go here into DocuSign and I say I want to create a brand new envelope template, I'm going to click on the new button. And the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to basically ask me, okay, well, give it a name. So let's call this NDA, I'll call it abbreviated NDA version 2. I want to make it abundantly clear, like which is the one that I created before, which is just called NDA, and the one that we're creating now. And over here, first you need to choose the primary object on which it's based. So we're going to be basing it off of the account. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to hit next. Once I do that, I'm going to be presented with a screen that will allow me to upload my document. Thank you. So I'm going to go over here and click Upload Document. And let's just grab that PDF. And now I'm just going to go here and I'm going to hit Next. So on this screen is where I created some of the magic to automatically include specific recipients and give them a particular role. Now, again, don't get confused by the word role. In this scenario, it's the role of the individual who is signing the document. So for example, you could have landlord-tenant, you could have customer or prospect or vendor or channel partner or distributor. So depending on the terminology that is used within your organization, and as it relates to that specific document, that's what the role is. So I'm going to go here to click Add Recipient. Now, by the way, you could also do this. Watch this. This is actually pretty cool. I can choose for related lists, and I can choose what related list off of the account. So in theory, I could say, you know what, since I have an account, let's make believe that this one we want to send to all contacts maybe on the account. Maybe we don't want to use the primary contact lookup. We can also add a filter in here. Now, where you could say this is off of the contact object. So if I wanted to do something where like we had a checkbox of primary contact and it was populated, or we have a status of active or inactive, so I could do all different kinds of funky things like that. I'm not going to do that right now. So for the template role, so this is the role that I'm talking about, like landlord, tenant, customer, distributor, vendor, blah, blah, blah. So over here, I'm going to say, just going to call it recipient. And I can also choose in what sequence, because if we have multiple contacts who are getting it, we could choose based on what sequence should they be included as recipients of the document. I'm not going to, so long as it's not required, I'm not going to do anything here. Now I'm just going to do add and new. And now I'm going to choose, let's say the sender should sign the document as well. And initiate the signing right after, and the role should be simulated maps rep. So that's it. I just defined over here as the template who should be receiving the document. Now, if I also want to specify the order, I can do that and specify the order that it should happen in this sequence. If I need to move it around, I can just drag them around and move them around. I'm going to undo the signing order. So in this scenario, I don't care what the order is. Now I'm going to go down over here, message to recipients. This is where I can control what appears in the subject line and in the body of the email. I think this is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go too deep into here. Now I'm just going to go here and I'm going to hit next. Once I hit next, this is where I can choose my merge fields. Now, even though I have these merge fields that I showed you earlier, where I'm taking from Salesforce the account name as well as the NDA permitted purpose, maybe I have something else. So let's go ahead and create, even though we're not going to really use it, let's go ahead because I want to show you how the functionality works. So it's showing me it's based on the account. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to choose something else. So let's choose, let's say industry. Let's scroll down to industry. And let's say I want to include that. Now over here is where I can define whether or not I want to allow the changes that someone might do in the document to update it back into Salesforce. So allow right back into Salesforce. So I'm going to check that off. I can also decide if I want that to be a required field, whether or not I want the sender to edit it, or if I want it to be read-only. So I can control all of these things right here. Let's go back and let's just go and hit save. And now I'm going to hit next. And now it's going to take me to another screen where I can place the field. So this is going to look very similar, almost identical to the screen we were looking at before when we were sending out the document. So this is where now I'm starting with a blank canvas and I have to go here and I have to choose what fields that are available to me. So this is the recipient versus the simulated maps rep. In other words, our employee who's going to be signing it. So this is where I can go ahead and I can choose what fields we're going to include. So for now, I'm just going to keep it super simple and straightforward. So let's go put in the date. So we have the date over here. And this is where, from a formatting perspective, I can choose what font over here, and maybe I should have left a little bit more space. No, I'm actually fine. I was getting concerned that maybe I should have left a little bit more space, but you can see over here, I could play with the font so that it sort of fits a little bit neatly. And over here, let's say for name, I can choose over here the name of the recipient of the document. And if I wanted to include the merge field, let's say, of account industry, I have it right over here. And if for whatever reason I wanted to include it, I can go here and throw it wherever I want it on the screen. I can choose what font that should be. So one of the nuances of DocuSign is for every single field, you need to choose the font, the formatting, the font type. So one little trick that I learned is you can do something like this to select many fields in bulk, and you can choose the font in bulk. So this way you have some consistency across your entire document, and it makes it a little bit easier to make the document look nice and professional. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because I think you get the gist of what I showed you so far. And now let's go ahead and build out over here the signature area. So this is on the left-hand side, we're going to put the signature for the recipient. On the right-hand side is our signature. So I'm going to go right here, and we have these default fields of name, if I want email address, title, company, and then signature, and then let's say the date that it was signed. So I can build all of these things out over here. Now you might say, okay, that sort of looks like a toddler did it. Watch this. So it took me a while to find this one. That's why I think it's important to show you. So when I select all of these, I can then go right over here and select this icon, and boom, everything is nicely aligned. The other thing that I actually need to do is I need to make sure that the font for all of these is the same. So now that I set up the font for all of the other fields on this document to be Arial 9, it automatically went to be Arial 9. So now that I created these fields on the left-hand side, I need to do the same thing for the other party who's going to sign it. So I need to have some consistency here. So I need to throw over here the name and the email and the title and the company. And we need the actual signature block, and we need the date signed. And this is where, once again, I'm going to select all of these, and let's justify all of them to the left. And then I want it to look nice and professional. So I want to make sure that these are aligned as well. So it sort of looks like a table, even though it's really just big white space over here. And once I go ahead and I do this, let's move these up a little bit, and let's take these and align them and move them up a little bit, and these as well. And now I can go here and simply click preview, and it's going to show me what it looks like. So this is where I can make sure that the alignment of everything looks right and all that. So I'm going to go here. Come on, come on, come on. You can do it. I want to be mindful of the time, so I'm going to be done momentarily. So let's go ahead and look from the recipient's perspective. We're going to see those fields that I put in over here. So we could see the date, we could see the full name, we could see over here the drop down for industry is available over here. And we can see that this person is only able to sign over here on the left hand side. If I simulate for this other individual, we're going to see, as you can expect, that the only thing that's really editable is what's over here on the right hand side of the screen where they are going to sign. Once I feel that I'm done with this, let's go ahead and hit save and close. Oh, didn't have any options. Okay, the industry, I shouldn't have chosen the industry. Let me just delete the industry field. I showed you how that works. In this dev org of Salesforce, the industry field has no options. That's why you're seeing that. Otherwise, it would have automatically pulled in what we've got. So now this is additional behind the scenes setup options where we can set up as the template itself, how often should the person get a reminder until they actually sign the document. We can also choose over here, what should the experience be for the sender? Do you actually want to walk them through all of the options, or do you want to make certain additional things defaulted to just do like a quick send? I prefer to leave the default, at least for now. If I want the document itself to be saved back in Salesforce, which I think everyone would want, then you would go ahead and you would choose these options. And this is where you have the field updates. What should get updated back in Salesforce on the Salesforce record when something happens with the document. So watch this. If I go here and I choose add update. So now on the left-hand side, it's showing the envelope event. So if the envelope, if it was sent, if it was delivered, if it was completed, if it was declined, if it was voided. So when sent, this is what I did in the other template that I showed you, go to the field of NDA status and mark it as sent. When the envelope is completed, then go to the field of NDA status and give it the status of executed. That's exactly what I did with the other template that I created. Then you just go here, hit next, and now it's going to give you the option to automatically create the custom button and to put it on the page layout. So I'm going to go here, save and finish. And now when I go back into Salesforce onto the account record, we're going to see that this second button that I just created is going to be there. Boom, it's done. Okay, great. So now when I go in as an end user into any account record, so let's go into, whoops, I thought I chose my sales app, but I guess I didn't. And now let's go into accounts over here, and let's pick anything that I didn't work with before. And now we can see that that button appears over here, and now we can go ahead and simulate. And when I click on the button, it's thank you, DocuSign, for giving me a little bit of a coffee break. And now we can see here, these people are automatically included. And now when I go ahead and hit next, we're going to see, once I am looking at the preview, which we're going to see in a moment, we're going to see that updated document that I just created, and everything else works exactly the same like I showed you earlier. So here's where I could see these are the fields, and on the bottom I can see here are the fields that are available there, and I can go ahead and hit send if I need to, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and discard, and I'm done. Anyway, so that is the overall walkthrough that I wanted to give you as it relates to working with Salesforce and DocuSign. And I hope that you can see from this just through the ability to merge information from Salesforce into your outbound document, as well as having certain transactions from the DocuSign envelope itself trigger automation within Salesforce. To me, those are incredibly powerful options to really automate a lot of mundane tasks that are tasks or manual efforts that are currently taking place within your organization. Now also keep in mind, there's a lot of other automation that you could do where, let's say, based on the NDA status of being executed, automatically create a chat or post on the record, automatically send an email to the internal parties, but DocuSign is actually doing that anyway, or automatically create a task for someone to go ahead and review the signed document. So you could do all kinds of sort of daisy chain additional pieces of automation as needed for your organization based on whatever it is that you're looking to do within Salesforce as it relates to your document management. So with all that, let's move over into the Q&A segment, and let me take a look at some of the comments that you guys have been throwing on the into the comment section that I haven't looked at. Okay, so now where is the window that I'm looking for? I think it went all the way up here. So window and comments, and here we go. All right, let's take a look at some of these questions so that I can help you guys with some of these. Oh, this is a great question. Whoops, make it centered over here. Do all of the signatures need to be a Salesforce user? Signatories? No, they don't need to be Salesforce users whatsoever. It could be absolutely anyone. Would the training of the internal end users be focused on DocuSign or on using the form in Salesforce? If the end users are sending out documents, then you should train them on what's involved in sending out the document. If they're exclusively signing the document, they don't need to know anything about Salesforce whatsoever. And I see Tim jumped in to try to successfully answer that. Were the stages on the form set up in Salesforce or defaulted on the DocuSign app? So the NDA statuses I created from scratch. And honestly, I did it based off of the project that I worked on for this other client, where the client didn't even ask for it. I suggested to them, don't you want to see the status? Like if it was sent out, you don't want to have to always go into the DocuSign history to see, oh, did we send this document out to these people or did they actually sign it? So let's make it a little bit more visible within the corresponding Salesforce record itself. Yeah, that's how we did that. Jennifer, you are raising an excellent issue. You definitely need, let me make this a little bit bigger. You definitely need to think carefully before allowing the write back functionality back into Salesforce. And this is for a lot of reasons. You might have, let's say the company that you're sending it to is, let's say, Home Depot, but you're sending it to one particular division of Home Depot. Your account name might be in Salesforce, might be very different from the way you are giving the account name to the customer. Or the person, the way they perceive their account name might be very different than what you have back in Salesforce. And it might not fit your internal consistent criteria that you want to apply within your own organization. So definitely think carefully before doing that. But I do want to show you that I did want to show you that the functionality existed. So I think that is pretty important. And I see there's additional, yes, and Jennifer's bringing up some great examples. All too often, people fill out forms in all lower caps or in all caps, and all of the work that you might have done to clean up your instance of Salesforce is thrown in the garbage because the customer did that. So you definitely need to think that through. Looking to see whether or not, does it have to be triggered send using a button? So this is actually a really good question. My answer is, I believe so, but I'm not 100% certain. Based on everything that I've seen, and also for the use cases that I've been focused on so far, they actually do want a button because they want that it should be manually triggered and reviewed before the document gets sent out. But I'm not 100% certain of that. So yeah, another option, by the way, Tim is actually bringing up a great point. You don't have to have a dedicated button for each document that you want your team to send out. If you just want to have a generic send with DocuSign kind of a button where the users will then be able to access any document, upload any document that they want. So in other words, there is no envelope template at all. So you could absolutely do that as well. giving the users the ability to go ahead and put any document that they want or need. David, this is actually a great question. I think the key values of DocuSign is an incredibly powerful tool. And I think the key values of DocuSign is the ability to have simplistic, like basic fill in the blank mail merge capabilities from Salesforce into a document that gets sent out for signatures, and also capturing the responses besides the actual signature itself. The fill in the blank items that you might include in your outbound document if you want some of those responses to come back into Salesforce or to then be the trigger for other automation that you have in Salesforce. I think that is incredibly powerful. And yes, there are other tools that can do that also. I think the way DocuSign handles a lot of these things is quite elegant and powerful at the same time. So in the end, I am very impressed with the DocuSign integration with Salesforce, which is why I thought it is worth showing it to all of you on this live stream. We've got another question over here. Would the DocuSign history appear in the Salesforce account activities timeline? So unless only if you want it to. So by default, the answer is no, it will not. But if you want to have a trigger where based on an envelope being sent, that a task should automatically get created in Salesforce on the corresponding record with whatever details, you can do that if you wanted to. By default, my understanding is no. Greg, this is an excellent summary. Thank you. So yes, DocuSign is powerful. DocuSign is a wonderful tool. I'm just trying to adjust the comments over here on the screen. It is a wonderful tool, but at the same time, even for the most simplistic use case of sending out the most simplistic document to just one recipient, don't underestimate the level of effort that might be required. And I'm not saying it's not achievable. I'm not saying you're going to have to take off weeks of work. You might have a bit of a learning curve, but also once you learn it, you can apply these things to any other kind of document that your organization might need to send out for signatures. So I think it is definitely worth exploring. And for those of you who are using various documents that are currently getting sent out by email and asking people to sign them and send them back, I think you might want to explore this. And again, that's why I thought it was worthwhile to share this with you. So hopefully you found this useful. And if you've got any other questions or even ideas for topics for future live sessions, you know where to find me on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on Twitter. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye, all. Have a good day.